The US economic crash and how it will hit Australia. Let's have a look. Good morning, everyone. Florian.Heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. I've got my nice, warm morning stein of coffee, and I thought we'd have a look at this article from news.com.au, prepared by economist Jason Murphy, discussing, well, the recent spike in virus cases in the US and how damage to their economy will flow through to ours. Now, before we go through his article here, let's jump over to one of my favorite websites. This is the Observatory of Economic Complexity, and we can learn a little bit about the relationship between Australia and the United States. Now, there's a whole lot of data here. If you haven't spent a few hours just exploring, I highly recommend it for all the political and economic nerds out there. It's a lot of useful information, definitely comparing other countries to other countries. So here's Australia, and I'll often refer to our dreadful economic complexity. We have quite a primitive economy, everyone. You know, we're a first world economy with regards to the technology we use, but most of it is imported. Most of it is imported. So let's have a look here. We'll just look at the relationship between Australia and the US. You can do these comparisons now. They've upgraded their website. So the exports of Australia to the US. We're number 5th, and it's $9.71 billion. The top product Australia exports to the US is frozen bovine meat. Frozen bovine meat. Who would have thought? I didn't know that, to be honest. Now, the US exports $22.2 billion to Australia. So you can see there's a little bit of a difference there, isn't there? A little bit of a difference. We're actually making a loss with our exports. But, you know, it doesn't really matter. Top product from the United States to Australia is cars at $1.56 billion. $1.56 billion. So, I mean, there you go. The most exported product from Australia is bovine meat. And that isn't, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of science to growing a healthy cow and getting the most efficient, growth out of it. But it's been done for most of human history, everyone. Animal husbandry isn't all tech. It's not quite as advanced as cars, and that just shows you the difference here. So the economic complexity of Australia is negative 0.93. We're 73rd in the world, everyone. 73rd in the world. The economic complexity of the US is 1.57. They're 9th in the world. GDP of Australia in 2018 is 1.43 trillion. And GDP growth from 2008 to 2018 was 36%. And we're currently, and this is all in US dollars, we're currently 105th out of 196 countries in the world. So, yeah, not doing too well. Look at the US. GDP at 2018 is number 1 in the world at 20.5 trillion, and I doubt that's going to last much longer. GDP growth was 39.6% from 8 to 18. So they're 99th in the world. Their GDP has grown 3% more than ours. GDP per capita in Australia was 57,000 in 2018, 12th in the world. GDP growth per capita, and there you go, we're 111th in the world, 15.7, because we've been just fueled by a migration bubble, migration growth. So many people have been coming over here. Our GDP growth hasn't been as good. I'm just adjusting this camera. Hasn't been as good as people would believe, or have you believe. US GDP is 62,000, and their growth per person has been nearly double ours at 29.8. So here we go. I mean, they're talking about frozen bovine. United States exported 22.2 billion to Australia. The main product exported from the US to Australia was cars, blood, and e-sera, vaccines, toxins, and cultures, broadcasting equipment. So there we go. I mean, we can have a look here. We can just see the differences in what we're exporting to the States. You know, bovine meat, sheep and goat meat, you know, fresh bovine meat, I'm assuming, blood, orthopedic appliances and wine. So these are what we're exporting. This is everything that we're importing. So we're importing a lot more, and it's of much greater complexity from the US. Now, if we can go here, we can see just the monthly trade, the difference. You know, the trade between Australia and the US. This is in January 2020. Data from UN Comtrade. I'll have to have a look at that to get some more. But you can see here, in January this year, we're exporting blood, sheep and goat meat, frozen bovine, not much has changed. Commodities not elsewhere specified were only 26.1 million. In the US, it was 148 million. We're importing a lot of petroleum from the US, a lot of crude petroleum. If we can go here, you can see this is this map here. Australia's top destination is China. Okay, that's our top destination for our exports. They import 87.9 billion from us, but they also import 119 billion from the US. So we are definitely punching above our weight with our imports to China. But US is more important. We have a look here. Mexico is the best top destination for US products, and they're at 237 billion. Australia is at 285 million. So we don't even rank. We don't even rank. And this shows you just the competitiveness between Australia and the US. And here, this is an interesting chart. This is one I suggest you have a look at. This shows the comparative advantage between Australia and the US. And you can do this with every other country, and it's a little disturbing in some ways once you get an understanding of it. So you can have here, this is just showing you, like if we hover over this one here, this is pig meat. So 27,700K was the trade value of Australia to the US, and the trade value of the US was 180 million. Look at the difference. So that would say that the US has a greater comparative advantage over Australia in this product. The closer you get, the less the advantage is, the more even it is. You can see here recyclables, animal or vegetable fertilizer. But the bigger the dot is, the larger the difference is. And you can see here we're much bigger in frozen bovine meat than the US over here. And down here, sheep and goat meat. Right on the line up here, it's blood. It's pretty even. Aircraft parts is still bigger in Australia. So this is just good to give you an understanding of the advantages between the two nations. And it leads into our economic complexity. And you'll see that while people are advocating for manufacturing in Australia, you need to take these things into account. There's no point building things here in Australia which are just not going to be competitive compared to other countries, because then people will advocate for tariffs. And right now we don't have any tariffs. And you know who pay tariffs? We do. The consumers, the people buying things, they're the ones who pay tariffs. The next time someone is advocating for tariffs, just remind them. Remind them the response from Jerry Harvey getting GST put on online purchases. That is a tariff. That is exactly the same thing as a tariff brought in to protect a select group, to protect an industry that we all have to pay for. Were people happy with that? Not a chance. Not a chance. And, there's no trade forecast, no service difference. And here we see the economic complexity. And this is the product space of Australia and the product space of the US. And you can see here the more complex equipment like industrial furnaces. It's not like Minecraft, guys. You can't just make it out of a pile of rocks. Woodworking machines, drilling machines. What do we have in the middle here? Bovine. There you go. But you can see here the majority of the complex items are US controlled, and the relationships are US controlled. Where Australians, we're all on the periphery. Less complex items. Wool. So and you can see here there's other countries you can compare us to. Australia and St. Vincent and Grenadines, the British Virgin Islands. I don't know why you'd want it, but this is a fantastic resource, everyone, just to get an understanding of the economy, particularly when we're hearing and reading all these different things. So now that we've got a little bit of an overview of the relationship between Australia and the US, thumbs up if you learned something new today. I certainly did. I didn't realize our bovine industry was that big in the US, but then again, good old Australian steak. So let's have a look at this article written by Jason. The surge in pandemic cases is bringing the US to its knees, and this puts Australia at a grave risk as well. So you can see here, the US is just going off the charts. Sadly, it looks like this is not coming to an end anytime soon in the States. The United States of America has seen a dramatic surge in virus cases, and this worrying new trend places the whole world at risk, especially Australia. When the pandemic first broke out in late February, Donald Trump said he believed it's going to disappear. One day, it's like a miracle, it will disappear, he said. Well, he's right. One day, it will not be as present in our consciousness. But that may take some time. That's not going to happen quick. It's not going to happen quick. You can't market it away, Trumpy. You can't market it away. Fast forward over just 4 months, 2.93 million there have since caught the illness, and more than 134,000 have died. Last week, however, the US president confirmed he remained optimistic, insisting he expects the virus to sort of just disappear. Australia has less than 8,500 cases of the illness in total ever. America is notching up a catastrophic 8,000 new cases each morning before breakfast. I mean, in some ways it's not fair making that comparison. Just the population sizes between Australia and the US means their numbers, well, seem much more dramatic. Much more dramatic. As the next chart shows, America has seen over 50,000 new recorded cases a day in recent times. On Wednesday, it recorded 62,000. And the alarming rate has continued with more than 60,000 new cases recorded on Thursday. The worsening situation is in the world's biggest economy hasn't hit us yet, but it will. Because, I mean, you've got states that are opening and then states that are closing. There's a lot of uncertainty in the US right now with regards to their response. The same thing that's happening in Melbourne. Our businesses opening, then shutting, opening, then shutting. You know, the unemployment, what they're doing over there with the numbers is ludicrous. People apparently lining up just to get access to their unemployment. And they're having to wait hours upon hours to even get into their dollar offices. So Wall Street leads the way. America's markets lead the whole world. Looking at the US market is a quick way to predict what Australian stocks will do each morning. According to the RBA, Australia's stock market is highly correlated with the US stock market, about 6 times more so than with the Chinese stock market. But now US markets are very optimistic, and valuations are high despite the economic train wreck and worsening pandemic. That optimism is lifting the Australian market. The Australian S&P 200 index has risen 33% since it dipped in April, and is only 15% below its all-time high. But if and when US markets falter, expect the ASX to follow them down. And, well, the reserve is money printing over in the States. You know, money printer go brr. Where do you think a lot of that money's going, everyone? So it's not just finance. The real world, there we go. That shows you. The real world it's different to the financial world, isn't it? It really is. There are real world linkages. Australia depends on the US for a lot of important industries. We send them imports, but buy their exports. They invest in Australian businesses, and we do the same for them. Unlike our trade with China, centered on boatloads of red dirt and black coal, a lot of the economic links with the US requires people-to-people contact. One of the biggest service sectors is tourism. As the next chart shows, the US had recently boomed as a source of tourists for Australia. By 2018, even more Americans were coming to Australia than Brits. In part, that's because of non-stop Qantas flights between Dallas and Sydney. It's also because our dollar keeps falling. Attracting tourists from the richest country in the world has been great for local businesses. Australia's tourism sector counts as an export because it involves selling to foreigners. That means every dollar spent by Americans here went straight to our GDP and makes tourism vital for our economic growth. But those dollars are now totally gone. What's the chance of getting them coming back? Not high. And I'll bring up this infographic, just to show you the scale of the tourism industry here in Australia, everyone. We're sitting at $60.8 billion, 3.1% of GDP, over 600,000 people employed. Pretty much at a standstill right now. Pretty much at a standstill. We can't even be confident that domestic tourism will return, just with the challenges that we're facing here. While most parts of Australia are closed to eradicate the illness, in America the virus is the one doing the eradicating. Hundreds of Americans are dying each day, with the chance the number will spike upwards into thousands. Well, if only hundreds are dying and they've got such huge numbers, that's actually not too bad. They're doing pretty well. You need to look at it as a percentage factor. It's just so dramatic because America is so dense and so largely populated. And the culture there is different to other countries. You're going to have a much harder time locking down Americans and welding them into their houses than you would in China. I mean, it's just life, everyone. It's part of their cultural identity. You know, that means the prospects of Australia opening its border with the US again are remote. And there's the thing: if we do too well, and we don't get any herd immunity. What will happen if other countries go through the pain and come out the other end a lot better? We'll be isolationist. We'll have to be. Assume Victoria can reduce virus transmission back to zero. Australia has a good chance of being essentially free of the illness in several months. For the US, achieving the same will take years. The bigger the difference between our level of the illness and theirs, the higher the barrier to opening the borders. That matters for our economy. From Goldman Sachs to IBM to McDonald's, a lot of American businesses operate in Australia. Impeding that flow of people between the two countries is not helpful. And lots of Australians work in America. We have financiers in New York, technology nerds working in Silicon Valley, aerospace engineers in NASA. Chris Hemsworth, of course, is plying his trade in LA. There's lots of Aussies in America, like the Aussies who started a shop in LA selling proper meat pies. Nick Bishop and his partner, Gary Chow, run the pie shop called Fork and Pies for years, but according to its website, it is now closed indefinitely due to the pandemic. The only pies it sells are frozen ones sent through the mail. Aussies who lost their work in America are trickling home, and finding the economy here is not so great either. And if you're just flown in, you're not going to be eligible for JobKeeper. Unless something dramatic happens, we will all pay the price for America's failure to control the pandemic. That price will be painful. Markets will fall, hurting people's retirement savings. Jobs will be lost, unemployment queues will lengthen, and there'll be even more people applying for jobs that are advertised. With just 4 months left until the November presidential elections, let's hope the US decides to take strong action soon. The rest of the world depends on them far more than they realize. Well, what do you think there, everyone? Some rather pessimistic predictions from Jason regarding the impact of the US economic decline on Australia. And just seeing our trade relationships, just in our exports and imports, I think he's right to be concerned. What do you all think, everyone? As always, please let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. The bloody camera is going down too low. If you're a fan and want to support us, there are a few ways you can. You can join us on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us via using our affiliate links at Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or Kucoin. You can buy our merch from HeiseSays. You can use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Thanks, everyone, and I'll see you in the next episode.